custom that we have of staying up all night. Where does that come from? Why do we do it? What can we learn from it? So that's what I like to look at. So really, it's not a halacha. It's a custom that we have. It's actually brought one of the main commentaries in the Shulchan Aruch, the Magen Avraham. He brings down this idea of staying up all night. And why? Does anyone know why we stay up all night? What's behind it? Yeah, what's your name?
So Alan.
Alan.
So that the idea that we don't sleep through and we're ready for when we receive the Torah on Sinai?
Yeah, but what happened when we accepted the Torah on Har Sinai? What happened over there? We were sleeping. So that's why this is called Tikkun Leil. You're fixing up from what was done over there. The fact that when we got the Torah, we were sleeping. So we're like doing tshuva. We're like repenting for what happened over there. And we're staying up all night. Okay. And that's what the Magen Avraham brings. He says, because to fix up that our forefathers were sleeping before the giving of the Torah, as the Medrash explains. So it's fascinating. We accepted the Torah in slumber, yeah? Okay? So now, the question is, so that looks as though the sleeping wasn't a good thing, right? We're being metakin. We're fixing up from the fact that we were sleeping through the giving of the Torah. That's what it looks like. Okay? The problem is, there's one of the great Hasidic masters, Reb Tzadok HaKohen, he asked the following question. Yeah? That in the Medrash, the same Medrash that says we were sleeping, it says over there that the sleeping that we did on Shavuot, on Atzeret, was sweet. So if it's so bad that we have to fix it up every year by staying awake, if that's what it is, if it's a bad thing, why is it called sweet? So hear what's going on here, right? Is the sleeping a bad thing? Is the sleeping not a bad thing? And then trying to analyze, why we have to fix that up. So the sweetness was really, we got a desire for learning. You got a desire for learning while we were sleeping. God planted into all of us this desire to want to learn, this desire to want to grow. And so we had this sort of externally planted desire that God put into us. Yeah? So the question is, what's so bad about that? I mean, it's hard staying up all night. It's hard staying up all night. It's hard learning, and then you have to go daven, and it's a whole thing that every single year we relive this thing. And if it was a sweet experience, if we had sweetness from the experience of sleeping and receiving desire for learning, why do we have to correct that on an annual basis? Okay, you hear the question, boys? So Reb Tzadok HaKohen says a fascinating insight. It'll touch on some of the things we discussed yesterday. We will be doing a little bit review, but we'll be doing some other things as well. And Reb Tzadok says the following, which is a fascinating insight about learning Torah. He says that if you learn Torah without effort, it's not Torah. Torah is constructed and it's built that it's hard. As we can testify, all of us who spend a little time in yeshiva, it's hard work. It's hard work, it's challenging. You're dealing with Hebrew, you're dealing with Aramaic, you're dealing with no punctuation, it's also in code, right? The Gemara is in code, and trying to decipher that code and trying to figure out how it works. And so it's hard, it's painful. And even if you're an experienced learner of Torah, it's still hard, right? And even if you've learned the Gemara already and then you go back and see it again, it's still hard. You thought you had it, and all of a sudden it's gone. You're looking at it again and say, did I really learn this? Did I really, And we're not talking about people with low intelligence. Yeah? I mean, Jews are smart people, right? When I was at McGill, the whole university was Jews and Asians. That was the whole place, Then a few other kind of people they let in here and there. But and so, we're intelligent people, yet it's stressful. Yes, it's hard. It's challenging to try to decipher, the text. So the question is why? Why does it have to be difficult? Why does it have to be toiling? So we did touch on that yesterday, and we'll get back to that theme. But there's other ideas here as well. There's a famous question. Let's throw out a following halachic question. Okay? This was posed to many great poskim in the Jewish people. The Jewish tradition is when a child is in his mother's womb, he learns the entire Torah. You aware of that? You've heard that idea? Everyone always hears that one right away, right? The kid learns the entire Torah in his mother's womb, and then when he leaves the womb, an angel comes along and taps him. That's why we have a cleft, a crack in our lip here, touches him over here, and he forgets the whole thing. So the halachic question is as follows. If a pregnant woman comes in the room, you should stand up, right? When a great Rav comes in the room, or a Sefer Torah, you have to stand up. So this woman is holding a gadol. He has the whole Torah in his hands. So you should have to stand up for the pregnant woman. What do you say, guys? Yes or no?
Depends maybe how pregnant she is.
Ah, come on. Fully pregnant. Fully pregnant. You see her stomach sticking out. She's got this kid in there. He's got the whole Torah in his hands. What do you think?
No, because he didn't toil.
That's exactly what all the posts can say. He didn't toil in it. What's your name? Ariel. Correct, Ariel. I think this question was actually from Moshe Feinstein. I know it was asked to one of my teachers, Rabbi Yisrael Zev Gustman, one of the great Gedolim. He was asked this question as well. And yeah, there's no toil, no Torah. Right? And you see that Torah is acquired through difficulty. It's acquired through difficulty. We feel it, but I'm going to bring you classical sources to show that that's how it is. Let's look in in Pirkei Avos. So in the last chapter, which is all about Torah, Perek Shishi, you should know, Pirkei Avos is not Pirkei Avos. It's Brisa. But it was attached to the, Pirkei Avos is only 5 chapters. But the last chapter, which is Brisa, was attached to Pirkei Avos, and it's all about Torah. So it describes learning Torah. You guys have it easy already, right? Kach I darka shel Torah. This is the way of Torah. Pas b'melach tochal. You eat bread with salt. Yeah? Mayim b'mesura tishte. You drink water. Vala arts tishan, and you sleep on the ground. So you think your conditions here in Ohr Somayach are difficult, right? Yeah? Yeah? You're talking about water, bread, and on the ground, right? Yeah, that's how you succeed in Torah. Which is fascinating. Yeah. V'chayitzar tichye. You live a life of pain. U'b'torah ta'amel. But you're toiling in Torah. Yeah. Ima ta'osechein. If you do like this, ashrecha v'tov lach. Happy is to you, and good is for you. Ashrecha b'olam hazeh. You're happy in this world. V'tov lach lo'olam haba. And it'll be good for you in the next world. Fascinating. So there's this idea of doing everything with pain. Pain, no gain is what they say, yeah. But it works by Torah. It works by Torah. That's how Torah works. And you have to come in with realistic expectations. If you think you're going to be sitting in a lounge chair with your martini in your hand, right, and fanning yourself, no, it's not going to work that way, right? Torah is hard work, toil. Yeah, the Gemara says in Brachas, Daf Samach Gimel Amud Bet. Amar Reish Lakish, Ein divrei Torah miskaimim ela b'misha meimis atzmo aleh. The Torah will not be fulfilled in a person unless he kills himself over it. So it doesn't literally mean you kill yourself, but it means you push yourself to the limits, right? You push yourself to the limits. And when you do push yourself to the limits, you have what we call siyata d'shmaya. You have tremendous siyata d'shmaya. I'll tell you a story. Again, maybe it'll inspire some of you a little bit. Right? I hope. Anyways, when I first came to yeshiva, okay, I was in yeshiva 6 months in Ohr Somayach. I learned here, right? So I'm in yeshiva, and we were learning Baba Basra, which we'll be learning in the fall, winter's man, if you guys are still around. And we had a very difficult piece in the Rashbam. In most of the Shas, most of Gemara, we have Rashi, right? That's what we have in most of Shas. But he passed away. Rashi passed away in the middle of Baba Basra, and when you get to Daf Chavtes of Baba Basra, begins the Rashbam, who was his grandson. He took over, and so we have commentary of the Rashbam when we learn Baba Basra. They're in Pesachim are the only places really we don't really have Rashi. So we have Rashi in Pesachim, but we don't learn it because it seems like it wasn't edited correctly, and So there was this Rashbam over there, and this Rashbam was impossible. Still remember exactly where it is. I could probably say it by heart. I went over it so many times. And here I am 6 months in yeshiva. And everybody's, as we say in Yiddish, schwitzing, trying to figure out this Rishbam. And I said, okay, I'm going to get this Rishbam. So I learned with my chavrusa till about 10:30, 11 o'clock. And I said, I'm not going to sleep until I get this thing. And I'm walking back and forth, up and down the base medrash, trying to figure out this Rishbam, trying this angle, trying that angle, trying the other angle. It's like 1:30 in the morning. And I said, okay, I don't have it. Went into bed, dejected. As I'm lying down, this lightning bolt falls into my head. And wow, that's amazing. I jump out of my bed, I write it down. The next day, I'm only in yeshiva 6 months, a new guy, kind of like you guys. I write it down, I bring it to the base medrash, I show it to my Rabbi, Rav Moshe Kalbach, Shlita. He should be well. He's in a coma. He hasn't been well. Great genius. And he's looking at this thing. I'm explaining what I write it down. And he's going, psh, psh, he's getting all excited about it. And he goes, wow, that's amazing. And he takes my thing, my chiddush of this guy 6 months in yeshiva, and he's taking around to the whole base medrash. Today, like our yeshiva today is decentralized. Today we have all different divisions, we don't interact as much. And guys in base medrash, all these advanced guys. But back then it was all one place. It was all one place. You had beginners, you had this group over here, and you had the base medrash, and everybody was together. So he's taking my thing around, all the Rabbeim are arguing. And then the next day, one of the Rebbes said his whole shir on what I said, right? So you can say, sure, smart guy, yeah, okay. Wiener's pretty smart, It's not the idea. It's not it at all. Because I worked, that's why, I still think what I said there was accurate. I've gone through that sugi again. I still think it was accurate. So, hard work. That's how the Torah is built. The Torah is built that we work hard, and that's really, and so this idea, what we're supposed to be thinking about when we're staying up all night, that it is kind of painful. And you're drowsy, and you're dozing off, and it's not so easy, yeah? We're supposed to be thinking about this is really what Torah learning is. Now we're in it. Now we're in the real game over here. So why would Hashem make it that way? Why would Hashem make it that we have to work so hard? Couldn't He make it easier? Why does it have to be so demanding, so difficult, right? So challenging. What do you think, guys?
So it'll be more rewarding.
What?
It'll be more rewarding.
Okay, so that's a simple understanding, which is true. You get more satisfaction. When you work for something, you get more satisfaction. Say for example, you learn something with Art Scroll, right? By the way, in the center program, we never allowed guys to look in the Art Scroll. That was off limits completely. But if you learn something with Art Scroll, it's much different than something you worked at and you broke it down and you figured it out yourself. So it's more satisfaction, correct. What else you think? Gilad, right?
Yeah. So, I would say, it gives you something to do, but I would preface that as in, I think that us learning, it's great, but the biggest impact of it is that we're devoting our minds into divinity, and us having something to occupy our minds, in a way that we can actually, connect with Hashem, is it's hard to get those opportunities, get it.
So remember, he wasn't even here yesterday, right? That's what I spoke about yesterday. Yeah, that's what I spoke about yesterday. When you're deep in something, you're connected. Exactly. And if this is Hashem's Torah,
if it was quick and it was super easy, then you wouldn't. Well, one, it'd be harder to do that, but also you just wouldn't have enough places to actually connect.
Exactly.
There's
Good.
not so many opportunities.
That's why I spoke about it yesterday. I really spoke about Torah learning as a chance to connect, and the deeper you're in, the deeper you connect, right? So that is a third angle. Any other idea? Yeah. What do you think? What's your name again?
My name is Avi.
Avi. Go ahead, Avi. Fire away.
I think it is just what you said, and I think it's very similar to what we see in the Ramchal's writings, where he writes about how Hashem gives us the opportunity to earn our own goodness. So because there's this sort of embarrassment and unfulfillment when you're just given something, but when you earn it, when it's like a battleground and you're taking lines, it's
Very nice. So you guys hit all 3 points I wanted to mention here, right? One, Sorry, what's your name? Benjamin. Satisfaction. You have more satisfaction. When you work for something, you have more satisfaction. 2, what Gilad said, you connect in a deeper way. 3, you've earned it and there's more reward. As a matter of fact, the Medrash says, and this is something to keep in mind as you do mitzvot, you do good deeds in this world, when you learn, Pam B'tzar, one time you do something with suffering, Kemea Shelo B'tzar, is worth 100 times without suffering. So anything you achieve that's hard, look, a lot of guys have trouble honoring your parents, Parents are like going crazy that you're in yeshiva and they're making fun of you for being, more observant and you're having difficulty. You know how much reward you get for honoring your parents in such a circumstance. You have your parents are like, wow, I'm so proud of you that you're learning Torah. And I think it's great that you're keeping Shabbat. And I think it's great that you're keeping kosher. How much reward do you get for that? I mean, okay, you get some reward because you're honoring your parents. But when it's harder and they're opposing you and they're giving you difficulty for something you believe is so beautiful, right? Then you get more reward. Pam B'tzar, one time you do a mitzvah that's painful, is worth 100 mitzvot without tsar. So when we're learning Torah, where every word of Torah, the Vilna Gaon says every word of Torah is a way of fulfilling a mitzvah, every single word. That's why how precious Torah is. Every word is fulfilling a mitzvah. So if it's hard, each word is 100 words, 100 mitzvot each time. Think about it. It's unbelievable. I do the math. I mean, it's staggering. You learn for 10 minutes. I mean, it's staggering how many mitzvot you just chalked up there, right? Okay. Let's go a little deeper into this as well. If we are, very interesting thing, how does a person in this world fight the Yetzer Hara, right? How do we fight the Yetzer Hara? What's our key to fighting the Yetzer Hara? What? Slowly. Okay. I'm throwing out the question, Benjamin, yeah? How do we fight the Yetzer Hara? What is the key to fighting the Yetzer Hara? First of all, what is the Yetzer Hara, right? How do we define Yetzer Hara? I mean, okay, evil inclination, beautiful. What does that mean? Yeah, how do you guys understand that? Yeah, Tyler, what do you think?
Because I'm still coming from such a secular background, my way before I even understood what the Yetzer Hara was to just be disciplined. And that's such a basic word to say. But truly, and I try to tell people this all the time, is when you least want to do anything in the world, you got to do it.
Okay, that's good. But what is Yetzer Hara? I'm asking a different question now. Yeah, what did you say, Avi?
Destructive force, sort of. Like
But how does it manifest itself?
How does it manifest itself?
Yeah, I mean, let's at least define our terms here. Like try to, we throw these, go to yeshiva, wow, Yetzer Hara, okay, what does it mean,
It's the voice telling you to take shortcuts, to skip class, to be lazy. To do
That's
what
all,
you
skip
want,
class,
whatever
what about a person who's not in yeshiva? What is that? How do you break it down? What do you think? It's Ben. No, Benny, yeah.
I think we're in a couple of the Shira, and the Yetzer Hara is an angel who is given a role in this world to essentially veer us away from achieving the perfection that Hashem wants us to achieve in this world to emulate.
Well, I can't say it's an,
We're getting specific.
but how can you say it's an angel? It's in the person himself. It's part of him. He has the Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara. It's both things going on inside. What do you think? Yeah?
I'd say it's
Ariel.
a couple things, like number one, very self-serving and also very physical.
Okay. Now we're getting warm. Now we're getting warmed up a little bit here, right? There are many manifestations of the Yetzer Hara. The two major ones are the animal drives. We have that. We have to discuss that. Why are animal drives bad? I mean, God made them, right? He makes us, we need to eat, we need to sleep, we have a sexual drive. How could they be bad? I mean, God made them, right? So, okay, that needs to be, but that is accurate. 2 is, as you say, ego, pride, right? But even pride, is that a negative thing? Self-confidence, it's good to be a self-confident person. What does it mean pride? What does it mean ego? What is that negativity over there? Those are the two main players. There are other players, but I would say those are the two main players of the Yetzer Hara. So by the animal drives, the Ramchal, if you ever have a chance, Derech Hashem is a very holy book, and he discusses this quite in detail over there. He says the animal drives, of course, we need the animal drives. I mean, come on. God made them. Without, that's our survival. We don't eat, we don't sleep. You know, if it wouldn't be for the sexual drive, we wouldn't get married, right? And they have children and bring children in the world. So obviously these are not terrible things in themselves, right? So Ramchal defines the Yetzer Hara is when these things, these drives, ask for things which are not rational. Because they do. Right? A man can be married, happily married, have a wonderful wife, right? And a pretty woman walks by and he's, you know. So what's that? God gave you a wife. Why are you doing that? That we would call Yetzer Hara, right? You go to a Shabbos meal. The food is delicious, right? And the food is going up and up and up, and you're eating and you're eating and you're eating and you're satiated. And now the dessert comes out. It's okay. You have a little something to sweeten to take away the taste of the meat or something like that. Now you're stuffed. And the cake is just winking at you and saying, eat me, you know, take me and eat me. That we would call Yetzer Hara, right? When you need something, if you're tired, go to sleep. But if you already slept 8 hours and you sleep another 3 hours, we call that Yetzer Hara as well. When the animal drives demand something of you, which is irrational, that we would call Yetzer Hara. If the animal drives are asking for something which is against your self-interest, against what's normal and rational and thought out, that what we'd call, that's one type of Yetzer Hara. So what's ego? Self-confidence is a good thing. What's wrong with knowing your abilities, knowing who you are, knowing your abilities? Yeah? Because you look at, the classical example is Moshe. Moshe was the humblest of all men, but he was a powerful leader. He wasn't a slouch, He had rebellions, he had all kinds of things against him that, he had to lead the people questioned him all the time. So what is humility and what is we call gava, pride, which is a bad thing and blocks you from God? So Rav Wolbe, one of the great Bali Musar in Ali Shur, he describes it, and he says you have to know who you are, and you have to know your abilities. You have to be in touch with that, because that's how you're going to contribute to this world. You have to know your strengths, you have to know what you can do, and you have to be in touch with that. And that's fine. That's self-confidence. That's just knowing who you are. But when you start thinking, I'm better than somebody else, when you start looking down on other people or needing other people to build you up and tell you how great you are, that's ego. That's pride, which drives you from this world. Right? A lot of these, entertainers or politicians, they're egomaniacs. So they're always waiting for everybody to clap and say, you're so great, and meanwhile, they're inside, they're totally empty. They have nothing, Why do they always need everybody praising them? Because they really inside, they feel they're nothing. So another compliment, another, round of applause, all this stuff is going to help them to feel good about themselves. A person that really has it, what does he need it for? Doesn't move him. So what? Someone says, wow, shkoya, great, so what, He moves on, right? So there's one remedy that helps to fight the Yetzer Hara. The Gemara in Kedushin, Daf Lamed, says the only remedy to fight the Yetzer Hara is learning Torah. That's the remedy. Hashem made it. He put it in us to give us a challenge in life. And the way around it is by learning Torah. Barati Yetzer Hara, I created the Yetzer Hara. Barati lo Torah tavlin, I created the Torah as a spice. Very interesting. Why does the Gemara say it's a spice? Fascinating. It should say, I created the Torah to wipe it out. Because as we're describing here, you're not trying to blitz. You don't want to blitz your animal drives. They're supposed to survive. A guy who starves himself is not going to be able to serve God. A guy who doesn't sleep is going to have a nervous breakdown. A guy that denies a sexual drive is going to hang out with boys. Right? Couldn't resist that one, right? Yeah. Yeah, we saw those guys over there with the yarmulkes on their head. That's what they're doing. Never, because they're denying that part of themselves. So the idea is not to crush it. You're not trying to crush the animal drives. You're trying to guide them like a spice. A spice guides the food. It gives direction to the food. It makes it more tasty. So the same idea of the Torah helps that the animal drives will be in the right direction. It's like spice. It'll be in the right direction. And same thing, we're supposed to believe in ourselves. We're supposed to have some self-confidence. That can turn into pride. That can turn into I'm better than him and I need to be praised by him or by the crowd or everything else. So the Torah directs it in the right direction. Now, the deeper we are in Torah, the more chance we have of controlling those negative parts of ourselves. And we see the Torah does affect you. It's a remarkable thing. We don't know how it works. You see a guy, and we see it over and over again in Ohr Somayach, guys walking yeshiva. And, we have an expression, a wilde chai. He's like a wild beast. He's a guy come in here, and he's, where do you start? His crazy ideas and crazy midot, character traits and everything else. You see the same guy 3 months, 6 months down the road. It changes you. How it works, we don't know. The creator who created the Yetzer Hara created this spice. We don't know how it works. Yeah? So if we work at it, if we're in it deeper, it's going to help us in our life's battle, which is to try to get the Yetzer Hara under control. Not to destroy it. You're not out to destroy your animal drives. That's not the Jewish view. To deny them, to destroy them. You're trying to guide them in a positive direction. Yeah, Gila.
One question I have with the guide is take something like sleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I agree, 8 hours versus 13, that's bad. But then also if you go too little, but then for example, when you're awake and you're tired, right? That's a pretty animalistic thing that you should almost always crush.
Not necessarily. I mean, listen, I spent many, many hours with my teacher, my Rabbi, Rav Aaron Feldman Shlita, and we traveled together and we did different things together. And when he was tired, he went to sleep. He said, when you're tired, you rest. Again, he wouldn't sleep a lot. He'd sleep for 20 minutes and get recharged and get going. Sometimes it is. Inside yourself. Again, especially if you have learned Torah, when you're fooling yourself and when you really need it, But we in yeshivas were used to, they call the yeshiva sleep. You ever seen one of those yeshiva sleep? The guy on the table, right? You haven't ever seen one of these guys on the table, puts his head down like this, gets his 20 minutes rest in and up he goes, So, and so that, sometimes that is justified, sometimes no. Yeah, sometimes you might need some energy food. Coffee or Coke or something. Coke has caffeine in it. A little chocolate bar or something, and you can get a little energy. Sometimes just Yetzer Hara. So, that kind of thing. As you get more experience spiritually, you start sensing.
Well, the question is where do you draw those lines? Obviously it's different for each type of Yetzer Hara.
No, but it's also different for each person. Some people need more sleep than others.
Yeah.
I remember when I wanted to go to learn by Rabbi Guzman's yeshiva, so he didn't want to let me in because they only took single guys. I was a married guy. They didn't want to let me into yeshiva, and so my Rebbe went down to argue on my behalf. Or Feldman, he went down and talked to Rabbi Guzman that he should let me in the yeshiva. So he's not getting anywhere. He's not making any progress. And finally, Rabbi Feldman says he sleeps 4 hours a day. So Rabbi Guzman looks at him and says, so what? That's all you're supposed to sleep. I'm not advocating that. I think that was too little. I think it affected my performance in an adverse way. I wish I had someone giving more guidance. I should have slept more. But each person, it depends on the person, depends on how much he needs. And there's no absolute in these things. Some people can sleep less, some people can sleep more. Some people eat more naturally, they have a bigger appetite, some people less. But you're in touch. Once you're in touch with yourself, you start seeing how much do I need. And also having a teacher is very helpful as well. Discuss these things with a teacher who knows you and knows, and you're on top of it and you see what you need, what you don't need. We want to take out of this world what we need, but not too much, not too little.
What Masechet tells you that?
Nothing.
Exactly.
Nothing. I'm saying that comes through learning, through experiencing, through growing, and having a teacher, having a guide. So like in anything in life, listen, I was a basketball player growing up, right? Brookline, We're rivals, you know. So you're Newton South or Newton North?
Newton South.
Okay, we played Newton North. Yeah. So anyway, and we're Bostonians. They're just, bantering over here. So you can't succeed in basketball without a coach. They teach you. They teach you what to do. Spirituality needs a coach. You need someone guiding. And again, what's too much? What's too little? Because too little, you take too little out of this world, you crash. Take too much out of this world, you become like a potato couch. So a couch potato. So you really need guidance how to take out of this world what you need. Okay. How do we overcome laziness? I mean, that's really what I think this whole staying up all night is going to kind of put into us, is we don't want to be lazy. We want to toil. We want to work hard. We want to achieve. So how do we overcome laziness? Our world is a pretty lazy place, There's nothing more lazy than the internet, right? You don't have to think. You don't have to, just you flash over here, flash over there, And so, we become pretty lazy as a society. And how do you overcome that? One is you have to have a goal. You have to have a goal. If the goal's in front of you, it's much easier. And at least, when you're starting out, at least part of your goal should be, can I do this by myself? Can I take one of these holy books off the shelf and can I read it and translate it by myself? Start with Hebrew. That's the first step. Chumash, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Rambam. Can I deal with it by myself? And you have to work at it. You have to learn the language, and learn the roots, and learn the whole, the tenses and the whole thing, and memorize, flashcards and memorizing words. Yeah. Then ultimately, if you can, stay longer and work harder to get to Aramaic as well, and be able to learn that language and be able to read and translate by yourself. It is attainable. So many people ahead of you have done this. It's doable. You may be thinking now, come on, Rabbi, are you joking? I went through it. I had to go through that process. I walked in yeshiva with nothing, and you work, you roll up your sleeves, you get to work, and it's attainable. It is attainable. To get clarity in what you're learning. Even though, you look at the Gemara or anything you're learning, it looks kind of very abstract and you don't really have a hand. You can get clarity. Just do it again. And talk to someone about it. And talk this way and talk that way until write it out. Writing out is great. I don't know. Things maybe have changed in university. When I was in university, you wrote everything down. That's a great clarifier. All the sages say when you write something down, it's like reviewing it 4 times. Because you get clear. You get it clear. You get it straight. No one takes notes anymore, right? It's just sad. But when I was in yeshiva, I took notes on everything. I wrote everything down. And I think a lot of stuff I remembered because of that, right? To remember what you're learning, it's doable. Just review. Contemplate. Think about it. Try to integrate it. You can remember what you learn as well. Yeah? I can only tell you, in this yeshiva, we have sent countless students off to Mir Yeshiva, which is one of the world's renowned yeshivot. Countless. And they're the top guys over there. After 3 years over here. 3 years, a little more than 3 years. They go over there. I walk into the Mir, I'm a celebrity. Because they thank me, all the guys we've sent over there. They all hug me, kiss me, all the rabbis. Wow, thank you for this guy. He's amazing, And he's a guy starting from nothing. 0. They walk in here with nothing. They roll up their sleeves. They work hard. And the sky's the limit, So a guy will say, I'm not the studious type. Okay, that guy, he went to some Ivy League school or he's like, hotshot or something like that. Me, I'm not such a studious type. Yeah? Because it does look like learning has to do with intelligence, right? It looks like a combination, a connection there. Not so. Not so. My Rebbe, Shlita, when he was a young man, he believed that there was a connection between intelligence and learning. And he went to all the great rabbis at the time to test his theory. He went to the great Reb Shaka, blessed memory. He went to the great Stipler over there. Right? Rabbi Yaakov Yisrael Kanievsky went over to him. And he wanted to suggest there's a connection between intelligence and learning. He said they not only said he's wrong, they screamed at him. They said no connection at all. No connection at all. These are people at the top of the Gedolim, the greatest people. They can say, well, I'm a smart person. No. Hard work. That's it. I had a chavruta when I was here in Yeshiva. And he was an interesting guy. I tried learning with him. And like after 2 days, I saw that it was not going to go. You know? Like I'd finish the Gemara and I'd wait for him. And then I'd finish the next piece, I'd wait for him. And he was slow. And we do the next piece. And I really had to work on myself. I learned with him a whole winter's man. It was really tremendous. It was a very big thing for me and my midos to do that. He never gave up. A person like that would just give up. Like, what hope is there, you know? He never gave up. He's still learning full time. And he's a Talmid Chacham. He's a Talmid Chacham today. Yeah, just hard work. He used to run from his room back to the base medrash. I don't know how he had the strength to do it because he was so limited, but no, he didn't give up. Just kept going. And I mean, he's learning 45 years now, you know. Talmid Chacham. And we had another guy in the center program, also quite limited. He was limited. Like, he'd get anything simple, anything complex he couldn't get. Like trying to teach him, and it just didn't go, you know. Like you get to a point, and then if it got a little more interesting, like no, like he would shut down. He's also learning now, 26 years, 27 years, also Talmid Chacham. Hard work, just stayed with it, stayed the course. I'm not saying you guys have to learn 26, 27 years. That's everyone's going to do his own thing. But I'm just giving you a proof that it's not intelligence. It's not intelligence, it's hard work. And Torah is a very, very different kind of learning. You know, to be great in mathematics, to be great in computers, to be great in medicine, it doesn't require refinement of character. Some of these guys, I mean, any of you have been in some elite academic circles, right? Both of my parents were academics. You're in elite academic circles, you see there's no connection. You have these brilliant people with the worst midot and the worst character traits in the world. Bali Gaiva, they're so sure of themselves. Bali Taiva, they have terrible animal, everything. Torah's not like that. Torah requires refinement. It requires that we work on our character. Torah, the Medrash says that Torah goes to the lowest spot. Right? It goes to the lowest spot. Where there's less ego, that's where the Torah rests. You know, if we lower our ego and lower our sense of pride, the Torah goes there. We work on our animal drives. We don't, give in to them. We're allowed this basic stuff. Yeah, to eat, to sleep, whatever. Get married. You can have a wife, but when we don't overdo it. If we do that, the Torah rests by us. It's a different kind of thing, the Torah, than in secular wisdom. Very different. So anyways, that's really some things to think about when we're staying up all night. Torah needs hard work. It doesn't depend on the intelligence, not at all. Many of the brightest guys that I've seen come to Ohr Somayach did not achieve as much as the guys who were more limited. It's very interesting. I've seen, again, some of the bright guys have done very well too. I'm not saying they haven't. Yeah, we've had some brilliant people in this place, and they've done great, right? But we've had some very average or even below average that have done great. I'll just finish with one last story. It was a great story. I had a guy before I took on this bigger role, I was running the center program, and there was, we had a guy there, not young. He was 29, 30 when he came in, and he really couldn't understand what he was learning. He had a really hard time. Came in my office, and he started to cry because he was so frustrated with his learning. He started to cry. He says, "Rabbi, I want to like Gemara. I just don't like it. I can't get this stuff." Anyways, he got married, thank God. And he moved back to America. And he went out to work. He learned for a while and went out to work. And I was at a wedding. It was in Cleveland. One of our students, his daughter was getting married, which is the ultimate nachas. You see your students marrying off their children. And so I'm at this wedding. It was like a reunion. We had all the guys from the early years of the center program all sitting at a table and reminiscing. It was really beautiful, a very beautiful wedding. And In the middle of the wedding, this guy comes up with his wife. The guy was crying that he didn't like Gemara. And he says, Rabbi, I just finished Shas. Yeah? And his wife was so proud of him. It was like, wow, you know? And here's a guy that, he couldn't get it. He couldn't get it. He stuck it out. As the guy's working, he's learning on the side as much as he can. So that's what staying up all night, it's toil, boys. That's what it's all about. Hard work, reviewing, going over it again, and that's how you're going to make it. That's how you're going to make it. Yeah, Rio.
So does the same also go for davening in a sense? Like if like we can daven dates at the kotel on Shavuos, like Tina's going to do that.
Right.
So if one decided to daven Shacharis after they slept, would it have a little bit less kavana and merit than like the hard toil it would take to stay up, make the walk to the kotel?
If you, put it this way, again, if you can have intention, then go to the kotel. If you're going to fall asleep the whole way through, then you would go sleep and then daven, because you don't want to be, jumbling the words one into the other and not even have any concept of what you're doing. But if you can, even though it's a little painful, even though you're not as focused as normal, then it's good to daven at the kotel and daven nates, and you're going to be with, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Jews davening together. So if you can, that's better.
And if there's a little bit of toiling involved in davening, is it the same as learning where it's a little bit better? Or is
Yeah, any mitzvah. Any mitzvah with pain, that's why I brought the example of honoring your parents. Any mitzvah with pain is worth 100 without pain. Yeah. It's just the Torah always has pain. That's the difference. Okay, guys. Good. We're going to be together. I'll be here for Shavuos, Mitzvah Shem. I'll be together with you. Yeah. Okay.